Hello! This episode's all about how I created a dry garden completely from scratch. It's worth saying for the video about how I created a dry garden from scratch. This lamia was abandoned for 12 years, and before that we'd bought it in 2005 as a holiday home for our two kids and ourselves. Then some family changes happened, and for whatever reason it lay abandoned for the 12 years. In that 12 years the land was turned by a local gentleman who basically kept it well turned and pretty sterile. Like a lot of the land around here is just twice a year they would scrape the layer of weeds off it. So when we came in to live here in September 2022, that's pretty much the background to what was here. The building work, evidently, as you can see from the pictures of them doing the pool, there was a lot of heavy machinery and equipment also going over this area of the garden, what became a garden. So it was compressed. We had a compression problem as well. So it's agricultural. Then they built the wall early on in the project, and after that it was weeding and trying to get on top of the inner garden. At least with the inner garden I feel like I've got an element of control. It's controllable, it's manageable, it's a good size, it's 600 square metres in size. The land itself is 4 acres, so 16,000 square metres, which is slightly different, and that's mainly trees. So that is a little bit of background to La Bolla. The first things I did was to join the Mediterranean Garden Society, which actually is really helpful. There's articles in their quarterly magazine, which I found really useful. They also have a free seed exchange for members. I think membership is about €45 a year, and they do seed exchanges, so you can get up to 10 types of seeds for free every year. The best decision I made was to ask for the Dry Gardening Handbook by Olivier Filippi as a Christmas present for my mum and dad in December 2021. And oh my gosh, for a novice like me, this has been absolutely invaluable. So I learned so much about paths, the types of plants that you can grow, the whole sensible information about the root systems that the plants have, as in digging deep for water. And obviously this whole approach about, deep watering and as opposed to sprinkling, and how the path system can help with that. And then he's got an entire list, well, I suppose they're a selection really, it's not the whole lot, but an A to Z of plants that he's got information about. And I went through, I highlighted each one that has a drought resistance code of 3.5 or more, or higher rather. And then I looked at the heights, the spreads, the types of flowers. I decided from that which ones I actually wanted to try out. And without this, I don't think that for a novice gardener, especially a dry gardener like myself, I don't think it would have been as easy as it has been. He made it very straightforward to work from, and I was able to do a lot of the research in this amazing book, which I would strongly recommend. So I had such good fun going through this book and selecting any plant that took my fancy, piqued my interest. For whatever reason, it might be the leaves, it might be the flowers, it might be the fact that it was a ground cover. Whatever it was, I ended up with so many plants. And I knew, having read about it and all the rest of it, that actually you really probably shouldn't buy one of everything or two of, two ones and twos. You should do like drifts of 5 or 6 and have a theme in the garden or a colour scheme in the garden. Now, I'm not a professional garden designer and I'm definitely not a professional gardener. I'm a novice, I'm inexperienced when it comes to dry gardens, but I just couldn't bring myself to not buy the individual plants, and I wanted to see how they would do. And a friend of mine recently said, well, Sally, you're a plantsman, not a garden designer. Garden designer plants in drifts and have decent numbers of plants to give it that sort of feeling that there's a continuity about it. I've gone for a huge range of quite different and varied plants, and time will tell which ones do really well, which ones I like, which ones I don't like, which ones I propagate, which ones we use the seeds of, etc. So I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that I didn't really want to go down the road of buying lots of one type of plant when I didn't actually know what that plant was going to be like. Because I work easily and comfortably with spreadsheets, it was quite a process, starting off with the plants, filling in the key information about which height and spread, which I could sort of then decide where the location would best be. Also dependent sometimes on what colour the flowers were, what season. I was really keen to get a mixture of leaf colour interest as well as flower interest. And I made notes from Felipe's book about any special interest to do with those plants and what companions they could grow with as well. Their drought tolerance, as I said earlier, always 3.5 to 6, which are the higher levels of drought tolerance, essential for the Puglian part of Italy. When we got here, and I was able to actually measure the space that we had in the different zones, so I zoned it down for my own purposes to make it easier, more manageable process. Zone 1 is at the front of the land, it's about 100 metres wide, and in a garden, speaks for itself. Zone 2 is the parking area, and Zone 6 is trees on the land. So but I had to sort of plot what was going to go where. This was really good fun. However, each plant needed a number so that I could then know where I put it, which sounds ridiculous, but labels don't keep very well. I tried the environmentally friendly wooden, like lollipop stick labels, and they just fade, they get mucky in the soil. I didn't want to put plastic in the ground, so I wasn't keen on that. And I certainly didn't want the tags kept on the plants. Aside of anything else, it shows that there might be some value to it, visibly from people passing by, and I didn't want that either. So I have painstakingly plotted and made sure that I've kept track of where each plant has been put and multiples thereof. So this is an ongoing process because as you'll find out in the next episode, there have been winners and losers of all these plants, and we've lost some and some have done really, really well. But the ones we've lost, I've had to, as you can see, go through, cross them out and replace them with other plants now. So this is a bit that I'm going to need to stay on top of all the time as we go forward. So there was lots of research to start with on types of plants, drought zones, where I could plant what, where, that kind of thing. But when we physically got here, the work was mainly clearing the rubbish and lots and lots and lots and lots of weeding. The paths in a dry garden are really important. So we've actually laid this up starting with sand and then with some weed barrier and then breccia, the gravel on the top of it. And it's what that serves as is a sort of drainage point, so it holds the water, it retains the water, that the flower beds around it can then access that water from the raised, slightly raised beds. I would have liked to have raised them more, but I didn't have the time. I did mix up a little bit of sand because it's quite clayey here. When it gets wet, it gets really wet. But what we've noticed is that the paths don't flood anymore. There is no more flooding in the garden at all compared to before. And also, they seem to be flourishing as it is. So I did the inner garden, this bit, without really doing the watering basins that Felipe recommended. I did use watering basins in zone 2 and zone 1, but not in the inner garden, which so far hasn't been a disaster. They seem to have coped. If you look closely, you can see the pool boy who's busy winterizing the pool because it's now the 1st of December and we need to get it ready for not being used until next spring. As part of a dry garden creation, you're meant to do watering basins around each plant, and Felipe recommends at least a diameter of 60 centimetres to be able to get 20 litres of water in at the same time. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe to follow us on our journey at Bolla. We also would love it. Any comments or feedback that you've got for us would be brilliant. And do watch our next episode in 3 weeks' time, which is all about the winners and losers in the dry garden this summer. Thank you.